Some locations on Earth are so extraordinary that you won't believe they exist. This video will explore some of the world's strangest places. These 5 locations will give you the impression that you are on an entirely different planet. These locations are insane and just go to show how we know so little about this planet of ours. First on our list is Mauritania's Eye of the Sahara. Despite the fact that people have been walking across it in the middle of Mauritania for thousands of years, we have only recently gotten a perfect look at the geological wonder known as the Eye of the Sahara. However, 50 kilometers across helps to have a broader view of one of the world's most remarkable geological features. Therefore, the best way to see the formation, formerly known as the Richat Structure, is from space. It is so big that early NASA missions used it as a landmark. Although scientists are still debating how this nearly circular shape came to be, most will tell you that it is actually a deeply eroded geological dome, despite the initial suspicion that it was a crater formed by some enormous impact. Instead of a meteor, comet, or even an ancient volcano, as scientists once theorized, they now know that it is not the result of such an event. This dome was created more than 100 million years ago when the continent of Africa's swirling landmasses collided. This caused a weakening of the lithosphere, which is the Earth's crust and upper mantle, and this weakness allowed them to rise as magma swelled under the surface. Geologists refer to this type of uplift as an anticline. This anticline was nearly round and consisted of alternating layers of the 3 most prevalent types of rocks: sedimentary, metamorphic, and igneous. An anticline is essentially a giant rock fold that protrudes from its surroundings. Since different types of rock eroded at vastly different rates, the layers of sedimentary rock which erode more easily were worn away from the valleys within the structure. Because of how an anticline forms, the oldest rocks of the formation are at the center of the fold, while the younger rocks are on the outer layers. Over millions of years, the dome eroded away, probably sped along by all the hydrothermal water in the area. The Eye of the Sahara makes it feel like the planet has a large eye, so if you ever find yourself in Mauritania or a low Earth orbit, keep a keen watch out for it. Can you feel the music? These trees sure do. Next up on our list is the Dancing Forest. Kaliningrad's Dancing Forest is just the type of spot where you might anticipate seeing a vampire slinking through the fog. Locals call the strange forest, which is in the Curonian split off the Baltic Sea on the border between Russia and Lithuania, the Drunken Forest, because, well, the stand of pine trees looks more than a little tipsy as it twists and curves, stretching upward and contorted loops to find its way to the sky. However, no one is aware the reason why these trees appear to be grinding to Marvin Gaye. There are several ideas, some of which contend that insect damage, unstable soils, or even radiation from nuclear power plants are to blame. According to local folklore, you may get an extra year of life by crawling around one of these tree loops in the proper way. A popular non-magical explanation dictates that strong winds served as the shaping force. There is precedence for it. I mean, if you've ever gone on a stroll in an alpine zone forest, you've undoubtedly seen clumps of stunted, twisted, really cool little trees called krumholtz. Some people believe that the trees in the Dancing Forest have been trained to grow that way. However, humans have long been manipulating trees for commercial or aesthetic purposes, as is the case with Mr. Miyagi and his bonsais. They may get so thoroughly clobbered by harsh cold winds that they end up growing more horizontally than vertically. He believed that by placing a heavy item on a young tree's narrow trunk, sometimes for years, humans might teach it to develop in unusual ways. The tree really wants to grow towards the direction of the sun, much like the houseplant on your windowsill. It will always be able to reach the light. This is a phenomenon known as phototropism. Whether or not plants are purposefully bent, phototropism can alter the characteristics of their tissues. Reaction wood or compression wood, depending on the kind of conifer, is the term for the wood that develops when a tree has an underweight strain. It develops as the cambium, a layer of tissue beneath the bark that supports the tree's horizontal weight, thickens below the pressure source. Over time, the bend's peculiar shape becomes permanent and is recorded as oval or oblong-shaped rings rather than more circular ones. Local historians have no knowledge of any human manipulation used to produce the dancing forest phenomenon. Yet another forest, known as the Crooked Forest, may be found in northwest Poland. It consists of 400 pine trees, all of which have identical 90-degree bends at the base of their stems. Because of this regularity of the trees' ages and northward bending, many people think that humans artificially altered this forest to produce specifically shaped wood for use in furniture or oxen yokes ship hulls. According to that specific notion, the trees were formed before 1930, but were abandoned before they could be harvested when World War II broke out. However, even the origin of the peculiar tree forms seen in the Crooked Woods is still unknown. One of my favorite theories suggests that they were caused by young trees being run over by Nazi tanks during the war. All of this serves as a reminder that even though scientific explanations of natural phenomena are typically pretty cool and frequently necessary, there are times when it might be a little bit cooler for it to remain a mystery. Next on our list is a creepy spot in Antarctica, the Blood Falls. In addition to having one of the most fantastic names of any place on Earth, Blood Falls also has a pretty unique aesthetic. Blood Falls, while also a Vampire Diaries fan site, is also likely the most southerly of the strange locations you may ever see, assuming you ever get to see Antarctica. Blood Falls previously existed in real life. You've heard me talk about the deep ocean bottoms, the most unlikely locations on Earth where scientists constantly discover novel and bizarre-looking organisms, more than the underground lakes of Antarctica. I talk about them because they're very wonderful and are only surpassed by them. For instance, when researchers opened up the ancient underground Lake Whillans in West Antarctica in the early part of 2013, they discovered microbes beneath 800 meters of ice, about 5,000 bacteria in every teaspoon of water, temperatures that can drop to minus 55 degrees Celsius, and no substance that had ever been identified in the case of sunlight. It's odd and more amazing to witness when Blood Falls, a subglacial lake 400 meters below Earth, regularly leaks water into this valley in East Antarctica. The water is not only very salty, about 3 times saltier than salt water, but it is also extraordinarily ancient and may flow as crimson as a vampire's eyes. Around 5 million years ago, East Antarctica was submerged by the sea, creating a salty lake, which is where the saga of Blood Falls began. The lake and its inhabitants were cut off from the rest of the world and preserved in a biological time capsule around 3 million years later when glaciers started to develop and move over it. Even though it is now well below 0 degrees Celsius down there, the water won't freeze. In addition to being viciously cold and extremely salty, the water is also jam-packed with iron that the glacier bashed up from the bedrock down below. As the salt water on top sluggishly froze, it made the remaining water saltier and saltier, to the point where, today, even though it is well below 0 degrees Celsius down there, the water can't freeze. However, as the iron-rich water reaches the surface, oxygen in the air causes the iron to rust, and not just a tawny brown rust, but a deep crimson sanguine rust that gives the falls its name. There is practically no free oxygen floating about under the ice. Although it has been determined to add it to your bucket list, the most remarkable aspect of Blood Falls is what has been discovered living there. A population of bacteria has developed a strategy for survival that, according to experts, has never been seen before over the course of 2 million years in a salty liquid environment that presumably tastes like roofing nails and lacks breathing oxygen. The bacteria respired by breaking down oxygen-containing sulfur compounds called sulfates in Blood Falls, but the leftovers of this reaction interacted with the iron in the water to restore the sulfates, essentially recycling the organism's energy source. This is similar to those found at deep-sea thermal vents, to which they are probably related. Pretty clever. The ability of organisms to survive in such extreme conditions has a variety of implications for our understanding of the potential for life, both now and in the distant past of Earth, such as during the so-called snowball Earth period. when the majority of the planet was believed to have been covered in ice about 700 million years ago. Thus, knowing this, you must travel to the Blood Falls in Antarctica the next time you're there. Well, I probably won't go there because it's so friggin' cold in Antarctica. And for my preferences, the wind is a touch too strong too. Fourth on our list is Mexico's giant crystal cave. Due to their relative isolation from the rest of the world, caverns can serve as a haven for a wide variety of bizarre creatures and strange geological phenomena. Massive geological formations were concealed in a cave in Mexico. A mining firm began extracting water from a cave 300 meters below Naica, Mexico, around 15 years ago in the hopes of discovering lead, zinc, and maybe even silver. The massive 12-meter-long spikes throughout the cave made it clear, however, that further exploration or mining were not in the cards after the water was pumped out. Crystals the size of 3-story skyscrapers served as spikes, but they weren't the only danger in the cavern. Have you been able to replicate the miner's descent? Because a human can only stay in the cave for around 10 minutes without protection. You wouldn't get to see the crystals very long. In 2000, when miners were boring a hole to extend their mines, they stumbled into a suitably dubbed giant crystal cave. They had finished draining the area of water. They blasted their way through the rock, revealing a cave 30 by 10 meters in size that contained massive crystals of the mineral gypsum known as selenite. The caverns include an assortment of extremes in terms of climate. The average high temperature is 58 degrees Celsius, and the average high humidity is also 100%. There are hundreds of crystals in the cave, the largest of which measures 12 meters in length and weigh in at almost 50 tons. The air in the massive crystal cave is also so hot and humid that the insides of your lungs would be the coldest surface around, causing water vapor to condense in your lungs when you breathe. This is obviously not good. I mean, it's really hard to do scientific study in the cave because if you stayed in there for too long, you would literally drown in your own lungs. There's so much we don't know about the cave and whatever could be in it, including the possibility of undiscovered kinds of life. Because scientists can only enter wearing custom-made, extremely strong refrigeration suits for only a half an hour at a time. Despite its uninviting exterior, the cave housing the world's biggest crystals is an ideal environment for the growth of such natural structures. Naica Mountain, where the cave is located, was created some 26 million years ago as a result of volcanic activity. The molten lava that built the mountain also brought with it a large quantity of anhydrite. Dehydrated gypsum is known as anhydrite. The only difference between the two compounds is that the anhydrite lacks water. However, under the right conditions, the hydride can absorb water and transform into gypsum. And if the anhydride transforms into gypsum slowly enough, the result is selenite, one of the many crystallized forms that gypsum can take. The temperature is the real factor in this procedure. Above 58 degrees, hydrate is stable and will sit there, but at or below 58 degrees, and it will begin to dissolve and use the water in the environment to effectively reform into gypsum. And this is what happened in the enormous crystal cave. When the magma beneath the mountain cooled to a temperature of about 58 degrees, the anhydride began slowly dissolving, and new particles of hydrated gypsum began to form as crystals of selenite. Now, other caves in the same mountain, such as the one with the particularly intimidating name of Cave of Swords, also contained many selenite crystals. Due to the fast cooling of the cave, the hydrated gypsum crystals developed too quickly to deposit as massive crystals. Hence, their average length is just approximately a meter. The gigantic crystal cave was situated just deep enough underground to maintain the transition temperature of 58 degrees for around 500,000 years due to the presence of anhydride-rich water. The selenite crystals continued to develop until the year 2000, when the water was drained. Because of the ideal circumstances, the crystals may grow to any size. So, when the mine closes and we cease pumping water out of the cave, the crystals will begin growing again. And our last place on this list is actually another cave called the Mobile Cave. It's not just giant crystals that may be found in caves. There are all sorts of fascinating natural phenomena to discover underground. Some examples of such life are found in places like a cave in Romania that has been cut off from the outside world for millions of years, like the incredibly strange flora and fauna that has evolved there. Strange things may happen in caves, and if you venture into the depths, you never know what you could discover. Glowworms, crystals, millions of dozing bats, and other eerie things may be seen here. Prospectors looking for a place to build a geothermal power plant in southern Romania happened upon one of the region's most unique cave systems. Movila Cave is a cave filled with strange life that has been cut off from the rest of the world for millions of years. The cave is about 20 meters deep, has a lake that smells like burnt tires and rotten eggs, and is absolutely dark and warm. Also, save from the prospecting shaft, the cave is absolutely inaccessible. I don't think it's an exaggeration to call it one of the world's most inaccessible spots over the past 5.5 million years. Sunshine, food, and water cannot penetrate the layers of earth that cover the cave. Despite abundant radioactive metals in the waters and soils near the cave as a result of the Chernobyl nuclear tragedy, none have been discovered within. However, caution should be exercised when delving underground due to the presence of a wide variety of unpleasant organisms. These microbes lack the ability to utilize photosynthesis, a process employed by many surface-dwelling organisms, like plants, to convert light and carbon dioxide into energy and food. Since there is no natural light in the cave, they must resort to the usage of dangerous chemicals like hydrogen sulfide in a process called chemosynthesis in order to produce food. Some microorganisms in the lake use methane gas as their only source of carbon and energy, as well as oxygen and carbon dioxide. Worms, shrimp, and larger invertebrates, like spiders and centipedes, rely almost entirely on microbes for nutrition. These chemosynthetic bacteria play an important role in maintaining and shaping the cave's ecosystem. Carbon dioxide gas created from chemical processes involving hydrogen sulfide gas eroded the limestone cave walls, allowing the cave to grow through time. It's quite cool that the Movila Cave is the only place on Earth with such a peculiar ecosystem. The chemosynthetic bacteria that thrive near the cave's vents are thought to be analogous to the other initial forms of life on Earth, and have been posited as a possible explanation for the cave's similarities to the primordial environment. Similar bacteria have been found in various locations, but what about larger invertebrates? They look like a bunch of creepy weirdos, but I guess living in total darkness and isolation for millions of years can do that to you. There were 48 different species discovered in the cave, including 3 varieties of spiders, a leech, a centipede, and a very weird insect called a water scorpion that appears to be connected to bedbugs. Creatures that spend their lives in the dark often develop troglomorphic features, such as the inability to produce melanin and the proliferation of long, sensitive antennae. A lot of individuals don't even bother growing eyes. I mean, they're never going to use them anyway. Having no idea what happened to cause these creatures to be buried thus deeply, your confusion is reasonable. The dramatic climate change that happened towards the close of the Miocene epoch is a probable cause, albeit this is only conjecture on our part, about 500,000 years ago. Many invertebrate and surface-dwelling species may have gone underground when the weather turned colder and drier. When the cave suddenly closed, they were trapped. One of Movila's spiders is closely related to a surface species located in the Canary Islands, which is nearly 4,000 kilometers away, suggesting that this theory may have some basis in reality. It is possible, though, that some animals reached the caverns through cracks in the limestone just a few million years ago, rather than 5 million. Either way, this is an intriguing look at the weird ecosystems that may thrive in extreme environments. That's it. Those are 5 unusual places on Earth that you won't believe exist. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe for more interesting facts.